Alright, hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Overwatch League Fan Thoughts and Analysis. Today is the first video since we have finished all of the teams, both the returning teams and the expansion teams. So today, I just want to take a little bit of time to go over some of the things that happened after I made videos on certain teams. There were suspensions handed out by the league, also some signings that were made after I talked about certain teams. So those are the kinds of things I want to cover today. But a couple things I want to mention beforehand. I know I mentioned in the video, I believe on the Hangzhou Spark, that I was going to go back and watch some VODs for some of those players and that the teams that they were part of. I never got around to that, so I will talk about the Hangzhou Spark more, of course, as the season goes on, and I get to see them play in the Overwatch League, but I don't have anything to talk about from their past matches and whatnot. So other than that, though, pretty much everything I've mentioned I was going to talk about in this video I will cover. So we'll jump right into it, and we are going to start with the Shanghai Dragons and move basically in the order the videos went up, so from 12 to 1, and then the alphabetical order for the expansion teams. Not every team, of course, made changes. Some had stuff, some didn't. The Shanghai Dragons, for example, their roster has not changed since I made that video, which is a surprise. They're the team I would have expected something to happen with, because they're the team that is the oldest, or the team that I talked about the longest time ago, but they haven't changed. The Florida Mayhem have one little thing, which is Apply, who is the two-way player, was suspended 2 games for account boosting. Now, I don't know if that also carries over to Contenders, being that he is a two-way player. I don't know if that was also like he was suspended 2 games in Contenders, and that also counts as his Overwatch League suspension, or if that only counts towards 2 games in the Overwatch League. I don't know. We will see when the season starts, but I have no idea. Next, the Dallas Fuel added a player since the video I made on them. That is Zachary, currently 17 years old, but he will be 18 by the time the season starts. Will be 18 in less than 2 weeks, so that is not something you have to worry about. He is a DPS player, so he joins a DPS roster, which is already pretty good, with Taimu and Effect especially, and then also AKM as well. And that DPS role, Zachary, I think will fit right in. He's a pretty flexible player. Plays some Sombra, some Tracer, some Genji, McCree, a little bit of Widowmaker as well. So he has a decent hero pool. He comes from Fusion University, of course, who are now the 3-time Contenders North America champions. He played with them through the 2nd season of Contenders 2018. So, a very, very good player who has had success playing in Contenders. So, just, it's an impressive feat. He's been on a very good team, and I think he will be a great addition to this team. He adds some stuff that they need. Obviously, with the departure of Seagull, who is a pretty flexible player, Taimu was kind of up and down. AKM was never... I was never super impressed by him. You have Effect, of course, who's a very good player, but who didn't play late in the season. I think this team is in a much better spot now. I think they have a lot of really good players now in that DPS role, especially with Zachary. Pair him with Effect or Mickey, or not a Mickey, or Taimu, and even with AKM, and I think you get a very, very, very solid squad here in the DPS roster for the Dallas Fuel. So that's the changes we see made to the Dallas Fuel. The next team up is the San Francisco Shock, who have 2 things. The first thing is that Violet, one of their new players, a support player, was suspended 2 games for account boosting, much like Apply was, but he is not a two-way player, so his will be the first 2 games of the season. The other change they made was they acquired Striker from the San Francisco Shock, one of the best players in the Overwatch League in Season 1. Striker, very impressive. Widowmaker play late in the season, of course, played some very good Tracer earlier in the season. Can play pretty much any kind of hero. Widowmaker, I think, was something he kind of learned to play throughout the season. I think he's more of a projectile player, more Junkrat, more Pharah, and of course plays some Tracer as well. So Striker's a very good player, and he is thrown onto a San Francisco Shock roster, which is already loaded with DPS players. You have Baby Bay, you have Sinatra, Architect, Rascal, and now Striker. Sorry about that. 5 really good DPS players that are going to be competing for starting job. I don't think all 5 of them will make it to the end of the season. Um, Rascal might get cut, Baby May might get cut, but what's interesting about this team is they were kind of looked at as this very Western roster, right? You only had Architect and Choi Hyobin as your Korean players, but now in the roster you have Architect and Choi Hyobin still, but you also have Smurf, Rascal, Violet, and Striker. You have 6 Korean players. Now, 3 of those are DPS players. You only have 1 support player. So I expect that we will still be seeing Moth, and I think we'll still probably see a mixed nationality roster, a mixed ethnicity roster. But it helps that obviously you have Architect and Choi Hyobin who played on this team before, so they know the players and can communicate with them. You have Striker and Rascal who played also on some mixed rosters. Rascal played for the Dallas Fuel. Striker played for the Boston Uprising, obviously, so there is some connection there with the ability to essentially just they're a team that will be mixed in a way, but I think they might lean more heavily towards a South Korean roster this season. They're a very interesting team, and they're going to be a team that's fun to watch. I'm excited to see how they do going forward, but Striker, a very good addition to the San Francisco Shock team. I don't think they needed him, but he makes their team better. So definitely increases the San Francisco Shock's value as a team, in my opinion. The next team we have to look at is the Seoul Dynasty, who made one change. They added one new player, and that is Fitz. Fitz comes from Goin Water S, or Goin Waters, and also before that from GC Busan, Lucia. Didn't really play in the big teams, any real major scene. I did watch a little bit of him. Seems to me, obviously, in the Goats meta, that he's not playing a lot of DPS players or DPS heroes. He's a DPS player, but he was playing some Doomfist. But mostly, I saw him playing some Zarya. I saw him play some McCree as well, and for a very short amount of time, he played Genji. Didn't really work, and he switched off Genji. So you add Fitz to this DPS lineup, where you already have, of course, Fleta, and you have Munchkin, so now you have a third DPS player on this roster. Sorry if you can hear that, what's going on out there. But you have a third DPS player on this roster now, which is, I think, ideal, at least having 3 of them. I don't know exactly what his typical role is on a DPS, if he's more of that flex DPS player and projectile, or if he's more hit scan. You have Fleta, of course, on this team, who plays a variety of heroes, so you wonder how he'll pair with him, because Fleta can play your Widowmaker, Fleta can also play your Genji, Fleta can also play your Pharah, whereas Munchkin was more of the Tracer, and sometimes also like McCree and Widowmaker, but Fleta is a phenomenal player. Fitz, I think, will fit in well, no pun intended, to this team. He adds what they needed most, in my opinion, which was another DPS player to back up their already pretty good DPS roster. Not really anything wrong with this pickup. I think it's a good move by the Seoul Dynasty to add Fitz to this team. The next team is the Houston Outlaws, who did not have any changes. So after them is the Philadelphia Fusion, who announced that Snillo will be a 2-way player. So they have both Elk and Snillo as 2-way players for Season 2 of the Overwatch League, which I think is perfectly fine. Snillo is a very good player, but he wasn't going to get a lot of playtime when you have EQO and Carpe. So it makes sense to me to have him as a 2-way player. Though on Spitfire, no moves on their end. The LA Gladiators had 2 different things go on. The first one is that Ripa, don't know how you pronounce it. He is a support player for this team that they picked up, is suspended 5 games for throwing matches and toxicity. So that's most of Stage 1. So I don't think we would have seen him much anyway in Stage 1, but now you definitely won't see him until at least the second to last game of Stage 1. The other change, or the other addition that this LA Gladiators team has, is they added Panker on a 2-way contract. Panker, of course, playing for Gladiators Legion in Contenders Season 2 and Season 3. They had a rough season 3. Um, did not finish very well. They finished in the bottom 2, but and even still in season 2 and season 1 they didn't really finish that well. But season 3 they were even worse. But I did watch some Gladiators Legion for season 2 while I was going through and trying to watch some footage for the Washington Justice. And Panker to me just stood out. He looked phenomenal. He looked like a player who knew what he was doing. He looked to me like the best player on that map every time. He was playing Wrecking Ball a lot. He was doing very well as Wrecking Ball. I think that Panker is a very good player. I'm surprised he's on a two-way contract. They added a new player, or a new tank with Roar. Now maybe they're more confident in Roar's ability to play in the Overwatch League than they are Panker. Age isn't an issue for Panker. He's 21 years old. He'll even be 22 by the time the season starts. So you wonder if maybe they don't think he'll be a long enough option, being that he's going to be 22. Maybe they think he won't last long enough for him to be a valuable option. I have no idea. There's options and reasons why they went for Roar and not Panker, but I thought Panker was a very good player. I thought he played very well in Contenders from what I saw. Obviously, Season 3 didn't finish very well, so that makes you wonder if maybe that was the reason why they didn't go with him, because they kind of saw that maybe the team wasn't as good and they need him there to help that Contenders team. I don't really know, but Panker, two-way player, very good player. I like him. Pair him with Roar, who will of course get most of the playtime because Panker only can play a couple games a stage. But I think he will be a great addition to this team, and I think he'll play a couple games here and there, maybe late in the season or late in the stage. Like, it doesn't really matter. That's when I expect Panker to get some playtime. Next, the Boston Uprising. Their DPS player Color Hex was suspended 2 games for account boosting, which of course is problematic because they only have 2 DPS players, and they play New York as one of their first games. I think it's their first game. Actually, I know it's their first game. And their second game, I want to say, is against Houston, but I'm going to double check right now. But if you only have 2 DPS players, and you're not going to have one of them, it is against Houston, you're not going to have one of your 2 DPS players for the first 2 games of the season. That's really bad. That's problematic. And now there are, from what I've heard, rumors that the Boston Uprising will be adding another DPS player. One of the viewers, a commenter, Alpha Wolf 464, let me know that Blase said essentially on stream, like almost confirmed they would be adding another DPS player. I haven't seen the footage. I haven't seen any kind of video that proves this. I've just been told that the Boston Uprising were basically confirmed to have added another DPS player, but they haven't announced one. So if they were going to announce one, you think they would have done it by now, seeing as the season is a month away. But they have not done so yet. So that's it for the Boston Uprising. The LA Valiant, the New York Excelsior, the Atlanta Reign, and the Chengdu Hunters had no changes. They are the next 4 teams on this list. Next we have the Guangzhou Charge, who had Rise, one of their support players, fined $1,000 for account sharing. Rise, if you don't know, I didn't mention the name Rise in my Guangzhou Charge video. That's because Rise is the new name, or the name that Wan Jae Lee will be using. That's what he was when I made that video. So if you don't recognize the name Rise, that's why, because it's not originally a name from that video. So he's fined $1,000 for account sharing. Not a horrible fine in terms of playtime, but I really wouldn't want to be fined $1,000. That would be rough. That'd be very rough. For the Hangzhou Spark, Crystal, one of their players, was suspended 1 game for account boosting, which is very interesting to me that he has 1 game while you have, Violet was suspended 2 games, and Apply was suspended 2 games, and Color Hex was suspended 2 games. Why was Crystal only suspended 1? Were the circumstances different? I don't know, but 1 game suspension there for Crystal for account boosting. The Paris Eternal have no changes since that last video. For the Toronto Defiant, I'm pretty sure this had happened. I just don't know if I talked about it in the video or not, but Neko, who is their starting Zenyatta, basically their off support, was suspended 3 games for selling an account and obstructing league office investigations. So, don't really know what investigation it was, if it was for the selling an account and he was trying to hide information or whatever, but he is the only Zenyatta player on this roster. They're already a pretty short roster. They only have 8 players, so you have a Toronto Defiant roster now that is going to have to put somebody on the Zenyatta role who probably doesn't normally play Zenyatta. Um, and in that case, you have Asher, formerly of the LA Gladiators, who is a DPS player, who could do it. You also have Roki, who is a support player, but not a Zenyatta. He's a main support player. So, I don't really know what to expect from this team in their first 3 games where they don't have Neko. But we will see when the time comes. Finally, the Vancouver Titans and the Washington Justice. This was just last week, so no changes to them. So yeah, that is everything that has changed since I've made the last videos. This is also just kind of a way for me to just kind of obviously get ready for the next couple videos and whatnot that are coming out. The next video is going to be I don't even know how to describe it, but I have like categories and topics that I want to cover, like, you know, matchups I'm most excited for, players I'm most excited for, stuff like that, but for each conference and division. So I'm going to talk about that in the next video, so it'll be at Friday. I'm sorry this video ended up being late. I actually recorded it last night. I wasn't happy with it. I wanted to kind of go back and watch some stuff, and there was a lot of noise in the background last night, more so than today. So I'm sorry the video's late, but it's here now. So if you enjoyed, consider liking and subscribing. Comment down below whatever your opinions on any of these teams and the changes and the players, whatnot. That'd be very, very appreciated. But I am going to get out of here. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time.